Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Nikki and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go.
Welcome back, guys. We're on episode 11 of Sirens, Slammers, and Service. And today I am joined by probably one of the most badass chicks I know. And I actually know her through her other badass sister. I am joined by Kathryn Shirriff. She is a firefighter with the City of Toronto. She's been with them for 6 years. She was previously a volunteer firefighter, and she did a season of forestry fire in Alberta. And on top of that, she made history with the City of Toronto by finishing second in her firefighting class. The top 3 that year were women, which is freaking awesome. Yay, women. Love it. Kathryn was also a silver medalist for the World Police Fire Games, which is awesome in the sport of rugby. I freaking love it. So welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you for having me.
Super pumped. I'm super pumped. She is also probably one of the most competitive people that I know. Like insanely competitive. I will throw in this little anecdote. We went on a ski trip once, and there was a handstand contest at 1 a.m. while everyone was drunk with her sister to see who could hold a handstand longer. And then they both had to draw because they were both going to drop on their faces.
No, Ainsley dusted me.
I don't know. I think I have it on video. I'm going to look it up.
She dusted me because it's probably one of the, no offense, Ains, one of the only things that she would kick my butt in physically, because she has the gymnastics background. So because she could lock her elbows.
Okay, so let's jump into it, because fighting and women is like a total, like, especially as a female, there's not a lot of female firefighters out there at all in any of the agencies. And so I'm like, and I don't know a ton about fire. I really don't. So mine's all kind of law enforcement background, and super interested in kind of hearing the story, finding out, like what your training was like, what you did, how you got into it. So let me, fill me in. Where did you start? How did we get to this point in 6 years as a firefighter?
So I guess it kind of started when I moved out to Alberta. I finished university. I moved out west to live with my sister, and it was something that she initially encouraged me to do. It wasn't on my radar at all. Was looking more at paramedics, and then she encouraged it. She kept bugging me about it. And I also have an uncle that is retired from the fire department. And so I got to spend some time with him. So I kind of took the plunge that way and started my journey of getting the credentials that you need to be able to apply to the fire department. And in doing that, while doing that, I did a season of forestry with Alberta. And then I ended up going back to school in Ontario to get my schooling, which I can explain a little bit in a minute. And then after finishing school, I moved home, got on the volunteer department there and did a year with them. And then I was fortunate enough to get hired by the City of Toronto on a full-time basis, which was in 2016. It's crazy to think how fast time goes, but what you need to get hired nowadays is a few things. You need to get your NFPA certificates, NFPA 1001s, which is your basic firefighter, structural firefighting skills. And I believe there's a hazmat component as well. They've changed the number. I don't know what it is now, but it was the 472s before. And so I did that through college. It was like a 10-month program. They offered all over Canada at different places. And then you have to do some physical testing, and there's an aptitude test and medical screening and stuff like that. But and you have to get your license to drive a truck. I think I got a class 2 when I was in Alberta. And so license, you have to get a standard healthcare provider or your EMR, and then you can find it all online. But once you kind of get everything, then you can start applying to different departments. Applied to Toronto and got the phone call for the interview and everything else. So, and then I guess, when did I find out? In 2015, end of 2015, beginning 2016 that I was going to training. So yeah, really exciting.
So was your university degree anything to do with like fire, or like what did you take in university?
No, I took kinesiology, like Bachelor of Science. I went to Laurier for 5 years. I played hockey there. Technically, it had nothing to do with fire, but did it help my application? It's possible. Every city's different in what they're looking for. So some look for trades, some look for other kind of degrees just to show that, can time manage and go to school and and then other people, like we have all walks of life come to the job. Like I had a lawyer in my class, I had an elevator technician. There's all sorts, like a massage therapist. It just kind of seems like anybody can do it, really.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think probably your kinesiology degree probably helped a little bit with some of your anatomy work too and stuff like that.
Yeah, the medical stuff, maybe, like definitely the healthcare provider stuff. But again, like they train you and retrain you and go over everything. So, but it definitely probably made it easier for me to follow and learn. But also, like, to be honest, like the hockey thing is a big thing. I don't know if it's not so much playing hockey itself, but the team sport. It's such a reflection of the job and working with a group of people and a team essentially. And so I think if anything, that translates more into the job and has a bigger sort of, I guess, helping me be who I am now and understanding how to work with others because of that, living with teammates, playing with them, spending every day with them, having to get along and for the common goal or whatever it may be.
I started playing hockey this year. Not good at all.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I turn like the Titanic. I'm like, there's no turning.
That sounds like broom ball. The ball goes
though.
the other way and you're like 10 minutes trying to stop and turn around.
So you said you wrote an aptitude. So like what kind of things are on this aptitude test? Like, is it general knowledge? Is it actual fire knowledge that they're looking for?
Well, I wrote more than one, to be honest. I was in different applications and they were all different. I wrote Vancouver's and that was different. The one for Toronto, I think a lot of it is they want to see that there's a common theme in your responses. Now, I don't have facts on this. It's not like the aptitude test people told me this, but it seems like they ask you a lot of questions that are ethical or, how would you respond in this situation? What would you do? I wouldn't say there's really any like math or anything like that. It's not that those don't exist, and so I think they want to see consistency in your answers. And so if you're answering in how you think that they want to hear it, I think that's where you'll see like discrepancies or differences, maybe kind of like, if you're dealing with something at work, do you go to your captain? Do you go, like it's chain of command, like that kind of thing? Do you deal with it in house? Do you deal with that was kind of the, I guess, I don't know if even you call it an aptitude test or just more like a behavioral test, maybe.
Yeah, like it seems like almost like a written interview because the interview questions now, they kind of all go to that, give us an example of, tell us a time when, right? So that's interesting. And I like that you're saying the consistency of responses, right? Like I was actually doing an interview prep for a guy yesterday and he said, he went through the process before in 2018 and was deferred basically because he was bullshitting through his answers. And he's like, yeah, I think they kind of figured out I was bullshitting. And I was like, dude, you're interviewing with a panel of law enforcement. Like, our job is to pick out the bullshitters and the liars. Like, why would you think they lie to us? Like, oh, like we fucking do that all day. Just, just use real life examples. I was like, yeah, I would say that's probably a good idea. I think that's probably your best bet. Okay, and so we write the aptitude test. Does that come first? Like, is that the first
No,
step?
So you have to, you get your school first, right? Like that step one is you get your 1001s and that would be through the college or wherever, like they have a Texas program, that kind of thing. The order isn't that specific. You can get your license or your EMR, your first responder, healthcare provider, whatever. That order doesn't matter. But after that, then you need to go. So a lot of the departments in Ontario, it would be different for out west, but in Ontario, they contract out the aptitude, the medical, and the like firefighter skills aspect of it. And so that goes through a company near the airport here in the GTA. If you're applying to one of those departments that requires it, then you have to do it. Other departments don't necessarily require it. So I guess it depends if you're being really specific or picky on where you want to go or apply to or not. So then after I got my school, my license, my medical stuff, Then I book an appointment with this company, and then you do step 1, and you have to pass the aptitude test to be able to go to stage 2, and so on and so forth. So you have to pass stage 2 to do stage 3. And I think there's a total of 3 stages. And then once you pass all that, then you get those certificates. Then you can then go and apply to, say, Toronto, and say, okay, I've got all the credentials that you were requiring, and you have to prove it, and then you apply that way, and then you just wait to hear back.
Do you interview them? Like, you put in your application?
You interview after. So they would look at your application, make sure you have everything, and then look at your resume, your cover letter, whatever else, and then hope to get an email saying that you have an interview. So aptitude test would come first. Then you would do your medical screening and your fitness test. So, they check your eyes, your ears, all that stuff. And then you do a fitness test where you do a VO2 max and some other stuff. It's changed a little bit since I've done it. So, and
what
then
did you have to do?
Yeah, it was the VO2 max on the treadmill. Then I think it was into the firefighter aspect where you had to put on a weighted vest. You had to do a step mill for 3 or 3.5 minutes. And then you got off that. And then you had to there was like a dummy drag component. There was a hose drag, and there was a ladder raise, a roof hatch raise. It was like, you didn't need to be a firefighter to be able to do those things, but it was a physical component to test that you could do. Mm-hmm. There was a tire, you had to hit a tire with a sledge, and it was all timed. So you had to do it within a certain amount of time. After that, if you pass that, then they go into the skills part where you have to do actual firefighter skills, like hoisting a tool with the proper knots or the proper rope tie-offs. You have to do ladder raise, so carry a ladder over your shoulder when you go up, set up a ladder against the wall, carry your roof ladder up with you. And it's all like safe. And there was like roof ventilation. Again, those have changed, I think, as well. So yeah, and then you have to pass that as well. And then after that, you should be good.
And so the fire skills are related to the courses that you took.
Yeah, so they definitely recommend that you have a background, either you went to school or you took some kind of fire course or you were a volunteer or something, to do that. Like, to go and do that, having never done it, it'd be kind of silly, I guess. But
so you interview, and then once you interview, as long as you were successful in your interview, then you move on.
Then you would get, I think it's a conditional job offer upon you getting a medical screening. So then they set up, you have to go see the doctor that's affiliated with the job, get all kinds of scans and whatever that they do, make sure that you're physically capable. I don't know if they hold people back or how often that happens, or maybe they might defer you if you have something going on that you have to have, you have to get looked into more or something, and then they'll just defer you. So they won't actually get rid of you that way if you've passed everything else. But after the interview, if you pass the interview, you get a conditional job offer for your medical. Then I guess, yeah, you would get hired for the next class.
Yeah. So you're saying, so you started yours basically January of 2016.
March. I started January 2016. Yeah.
Okay, so how long is training for you? And is it different for each agency? Or is it like a set?
Yeah, so every municipality does it differently. So what I did for Toronto does not apply to any other department that I know of. And it's changed, again, it's changed since I've done it. Like they're continuously trying to improve it or better it or whatever. When I was in, we were 10 weeks of training, and then I was on the trucks. And now I think it's 20 or more weeks now, because they have what do they have? They have another component that I didn't have. It's like fire prevention or something. They have like 5 weeks of that, plus some other stuff. Anyway, I don't know the specifics now, but it's definitely a lot longer. And my class was 46 or 47, and they're doing classes of 100 now. I think it's the baby boom generation retiring. Like, it's kind of these mass retirees, which I'm sure you're seeing in Alberta as well. And they're just trying to keep up with, like, COVID. There was a delay, and then, yeah, they're just trying to keep up.
So 100 people in a class. Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so walk me through training. So 10 minutes. So even if it has changed, I'd like to know what your experience was. So
when I think about training, I think about just being scared shitless the entire time, right? Like, don't step a toe out of line. Have you pretty scared? You've just hit the jackpot lottery with the best job in the world, right? You don't want to do anything to hit the radar. So it's a combination of PowerPoint presentations and sort of like learning that way. And then they'll do the practical stuff outside, and then there's also a medical component. So we got split up, and you do have the class that does the medical. I think we were 3 weeks then. And so that's just all of our medical protocol, PSAs, childbirth, you name it. And then the other half would do the firefighter skills, anything, like all the equipment we carry, ladders, fans, generators, rolling hose, obviously search and rescue, like actually, firefighting, having live fires, rescue, self-rescue. There's a lot of different stuff, and it's practical, and then outside and doing all the hands-on stuff to make sure you can do it.
So so the 10 weeks, the whole 10 weeks, is that just like school stuff? And then you do like a practicum, like where you're, like you said, you were on the trucks. Like, is that once you're done, you're working your full-time?
Once you're done your 10 weeks, like, so we might do a morning of theory and then you go outside and you do the practical side of it. But once you're done your 10 weeks and we did graduation, and you're given your assignment, what hall you're assigned to or truck, and then that's where you go. And then that's it. You're there until you have to finish your probationary year. You can then, if you want to switch halls, you can apply to switch halls within the department if there's vacancies available. But yeah, that's essentially, like, I got assigned to where I am and I've stayed there since so far. So, and it's 6 years goes by really quickly.
So there was definitely 3 females in your class, because you guys came in the top 3, which is just like fucking awesome. Well done. So fucking proud of you.
Thank you.
So you said there's about 40 people in your class?
I think we were 46 or 47.
And how many women were in that?
If I remember, it was either 6 or 7.
And 3 of you came on the top 3. That makes it even better.
Yeah, that's kind of a funny story. The thing with the job is you have to prove yourself, right? I mean, like anything, yes, like, was it a nice accolades, I guess, but it put like a target on my back before I had even gone to work, right? Before I had even met my crew and stuff like that. So there was some ice cream that was bought for that. I think it was the second day I was at the hall, and one of the newspapers wanted to do an interview with the 3 of us. And so my captain came up to me and said that we had to go down to the academy for this interview. And I thought he was joking. And he said, no, like, they just called, they want us down there. And so they had to pull our truck out of service temporarily to go do this. And so I think there was an ice cream cake bought, I think, on the way back to make amends for that. But it's you had to prove yourself, right? You've got a target on you now and I think I had the nickname number 2 for a little while. Never fight a nickname, never fight it.
No, you just have to, as soon as you are christened with it, that is now your new name. Just get used to it. You cannot, Was it like marks? Was it fitness? Was it like overall, like, or was it different?
No, it was generally test marks. So I don't know if they actually really like graded us with percentages or marks for the outside stuff or like the practical stuff. I think my understanding is most of it was exams and test writing. So I don't like to use it as a gauge, because, as I'm sure there's people that are book smart and there's people that are not, or they have a harder time with that stuff. We have people that were commuting in from an hour to 2 hours away Monday to Friday. Yeah. And, because they had families, they couldn't stay in the city. They had to go back and forth. And I was living in the city. And so the amount of time that they had to prepare and study compared to mine was very different. I don't want to take away from it, but I also don't want to put too much emphasis on it, because to me, it's not a good representation of somebody as a whole, as a firefighter. I think there's a lot more than just writing exam or tests.
I agree. And I love that you're so humble as well. But I agree. I think, like you said, there is people who just excel in the physical and are phenomenal like for law enforcement, right? Phenomenal communicators. They can de-escalate any situation.
Right.
But if you ask them to write a test on de-escalation, they would fail miserably and they would be freaking out about the hate. But you put them in a situation and they're good to go. They're your go-to person. So then, like, what hall you go to, is that like just where you're needed, or is that that you live in this section of the city, so therefore we'll send you there?
So I am not privy to that information.
That's above
my pay grade. However, I think initially when they place you, it's all based on where there are vacancies within the city, and I think they do try to place you relative to where you come from. So for example, a lot of people are commuting from outside of Toronto. And so I was living east of Toronto. So I got placed in the east, what we call East Command. We're split. I think it's changed technically to 3, but we say 4 quadrants, north, south, east, and west. And so I got placed in East Command. But there are people that, they live west, way west, and they get placed in East Command because that's just where the vacancies are. And that's where they have to place people. And then you do the rest of your probationary request to go to a hall that's closer to home. That's kind of how that works.
I mean, Any hilarious stories from your training? Any scary stories? Any stories of like,
I wish I could think of any. I was just so like scared of doing anything or getting in trouble for anything. I think I kept my head down I tried to for the most.
it's all good. I'll tell you one about when I was in training. So in corrections, we have a fire team. So when there's a fire in the jail, we have to dress and evacuate the inmates. So we're not actually fighting the fire. We leave that for fire. But we do have to dress full bunker gear with the tanks, go in and evacuate the inmates. And so I think I'd been in corrections about maybe 4 years by this point, and I was like, yeah, I was kind of thinking like maybe fire is for me. Like maybe that's something I want to do. Maybe it's something I'd like to, try. And so they sent me on this fire course, and I was like, okay, like I was a lifeguard. I was like, yeah, like the Scott Air Pack doesn't bother me. Like having the mask on doesn't bother me. I could totally do this. And so it was two of my friends that were teaching the course from Fort Saskatchewan jail. And we did the class stuff. We do all the types of fire and things like that. And they have a smokehouse, and so you go out to the smokehouse, and that's where you're going to do all your practical. And so we go out to the smokehouse, and the first day that we were doing practical stuff it was all blackout. So essentially, your mask is totally blacked out. All of the smokehouse is totally blacked out. It's completely dark. And so I was paired up with this other female, and we were supposed to go in and do a search of the smokehouse to find the dead body. And so we just have our masks. We don't have the respirators on. We don't have anything like that. You can totally breathe through the hole in your mask, but your mask is completely blacked out. And so we're on our knees and we're outside the door, and it was kind of like a double door. So first door opens and you can kind of still see like, some light kind of around the edges of my mask. And I'm like, okay. And the two guys are telling us what we need to do. I'm like, okay, you're going to go in, you're going to perform a search. You got to find the dummy, bring the dummy out. Okay, no problem. And so we're on our hands and knees, and this other female staff is in front of me, and she's tiny, like tiny, like you tiny, but like maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. And she's in the front, and I'm in the back, and so I'm holding onto her leg, and we're on our hands and knees, ready to sweep right with our hand, and do the old search. And so they open up the first door, and I can still kind of see some light. Okay, and then they open up the second door. Okay, so we go in. The first door shuts behind us. Okay, no problem. They give us some more instructions. They kind of let us shuffle into the room, and then the second door shuts, right? And we are plunged into the blackest of the black of the black. Like I have never been in a darker space in my entire life. And I instantly freaked the fuck out. Like I was like, oh my God, we're gonna fucking die. And so this tiny little part of my brain is like, Thompson, calm the fuck down. Like you're fine. You're on your hands and knees, you're on the floor, like you're in where you are, right? The rest of my brain was like, we are gonna fucking die. Get the fuck out. Oh my God. Right. And I could not stay calm. I grabbed the girl's leg. I fucking yanked her out. We go flying out of these two doors, basically like end up on our backs. And I think we'd been in the house like maybe 15 seconds. And the instructors were like, Nikki, quit fucking around, get back in there. And I was like hyperventilating. I was freaking the fuck out. I ripped my mask off my face, and they're looking at me and they think I'm joking, right? They think I'm fucking around. And then they saw my eyes and they were like, oh shit. Oh yeah, no, okay, she's actually freaking out. I had not realized that I was claustrophobic, apparently, and that being plunged into pitch black like that would be so fucking terrifying. And so, we go through the rest of the week, still have to do the training, right? Because you're there. And like when there was fire in the smokehouse and there was a little bit of light, fine. Tons of smoke, but you still see some light, fine. Pitch black, absolutely fucking not. Absolutely fucking not. And so that essentially was the end of my fire career. I basically was like, oh, so firefighting is not for me. And I do remember a friend that worked for Edmonton Fire was telling me that when they were doing their training, they do like confined spaces. So essentially you're in this like tiny little pipe, and like you're climbing through the tiny little pipe, and like your tank is banging on the top and your stomach is like touching the bottom, and you're basically like supposed to fucking shimmy through this pipe. And I was like, absolutely fucking not. If I was stuck in that pipe, I would go like fucking Hulk smash and like bust my way out of the pipe, because there's no freaking way I would be able to be confined to this tiny little pipe without fucking completely panicking. So there you go. There's a funny one for you for training. Maybe not your training, but my training. Really glad that I found this out at this point in my life, and not like after having done all of this work to get on and then find out that like this is not for me.
Yeah, for people that pay to go to school and find out the hard way that it's not for them, but it's funny you talk about that like little thing in your brain. It's like you're fine, just like relax. That's what you really have to channel, at least in training, especially, right? If we had to do search and rescue, or we'd have to do confined space stuff, and they do entanglements, so they want you to like get stuck and all that stuff. And yeah, you just have to try and let that part of your brain take over of just don't panic, stay calm, nothing's gonna happen in training, right? So
yeah. I was unable to calm that part of my crazy, because it was like logically, I'm like, we're on our hands and knees, like I can feel the floor. I'm not floating in space. Like I know where I am, and they know I'm in a building, and they literally just shut the door. Like you're totally fine. And the rest of me was like, we are gonna die. Holy, and like that was way stronger than like, you're fine, calm down, be logical.
There's something though when you lose vision or when you are blacked out. Something changes. So we do training for it, of course. And I'm not an instructor, but I can only imagine the compilation of videos that they could put together of us being blacked out during these, search and rescues, like in these little rooms that they've created. They've got furniture all discombobulated and stuff. They're trying to make it kind of, real life. I can't imagine what it looks like watching people just stumble around on their hands and knees, like with blacked out masks, just like running into each other as they, left-hand search around the room. Anyway, yeah. We have some funny images of that. My head that I picture it while I'm doing it. So.
Yeah, you're like, somebody's laughing at me right now. I just know this.
Yeah, going through that little hole. Like when they need somebody small to go through a little hole, I'm like, I'll go. I gotta be good for something, right? Dude, that's like the whole thing with the department, right? Is like you're a team and everybody has a strength and weakness, right? And so that's you want window for sure. I've been through many windows, right? When you want that ceiling ripped out, I'm going to my buddy who's 6'3", who can just like reach on his tippy toes instead of me standing there with a pole. He can do it in half the time. So
let's go to the first day. You're walking into your assigned hall. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what you're going to do. What are your shifts? Are you working 12? Are you working 10?
No, we do 24s, and they're 7 a.m. to 7 a.m.
So then,
yeah, it's Alberta. I don't know about BC. Alberta, I think they do 12. They do 10 and 14s. It's almost all of Ontario that I know of does 24s.
So how does that look? So you work for 24 hours shift, and then what do you get off?
And then you are off the next morning, and then so the schedule is it's like a 4-week schedule, and you kind of have 2 heavy weeks and 2 lighter weeks. But you'll work. So I'll work Friday morning till Saturday morning. I'll be off Saturday, and then I'm back to work Sunday till Monday morning, and then I'm off like Monday, Tuesday. So it kind of goes like that.
Okay.
Not to make it too complicated explaining it, but
yeah, no, that's interesting. Just because I was like, how are you doing 24? And then like, what is your turnaround? But it's essentially 24 and then 24 off.
Yeah, 24 to 48 off or more. Yeah, depending on I think it averages to 42 hours a week or something.
All right, so you walk up to your station, you're number 2, and you're like, hey guys.
I'm not number 2 yet. They don't like, know that yet. That didn't happen yet.
I'm just Kathryn. Hi guys.
Yeah.
So you walk up. So like, how was that first day? What was that like?
Oh gosh, it's all a blur, to be honest. You get there extra early, right? You don't sleep the night before. You get there extra early, and then I was fortunate enough that I had a colleague that was the class just before me. So he was, I guess at that point maybe he was like 4 months on, and he just like took me under his wing. So I just followed his lead with everything. So it was really easy that way. I didn't have to fumble through and kind of figure it out myself. He, kind of showed me the ropes and his morning routine and checking the trucks and all that kind of stuff. And my very first day, we had a VSA come in right at 7 a.m. So that was like, jump right into it, right?
What's your VSA?
Sorry, VSA is vital signs absent.
Oh, okay.
So essentially for a dead person. Yeah, not breathing. Yeah, that was like, get your feet wet right away. No waiting around for it. We did that first thing in the morning. And so when we talk about calls and when we say good calls, it's never meant to sound like it's always a terrible position that somebody else is in, right?
Yeah.
As I'm sure you understand. So it was good to get that under my belt and get that done. But obviously a sad situation for the family and stuff. So, but yeah, we had that VSA first thing. And then I think I actually had a second alarm fire that same day. So it was quite a first day where I got to, I had the nozzle, I got to, the water on the fire, saw the enemy, and met a lot of people that day. It was quite overwhelming. So I work at a hall it's got a rescue, an aerial, an air light truck, and a district chief and a platoon chief. So you're not going into one truck hall, 4 people. You're going in where there's like 13 people, and then you run a fire that has, I don't know if there's 8 or 10 trucks or whatever was there. You're meeting like, 30 people or more. It was a lot, like not overwhelming, but just, remembering people and, oh yeah, I met you already. I'm like, I have no idea. Yeah, sorry.
Bunker here. I have no idea.
Yeah. I think I worked with, did we have 3? We had 2 Johns, if not 3, the one day that day. And I remember my captain or someone saying, tell John this. And I looked around like, who the fuck is John? There's like at least 2, if not 3 of you. So
you just go to everyone. John, the chief says this. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Never mind. I'll go to the next
different
one.
John, wrong John. Let me try again. Yeah. No, so it took a little while getting everybody's name and getting to know everybody. But no, it was a really awesome first day. And it's been awesome the whole time.
So do you have you have your own locker, like your own, like does each firefighter have their own, I'm assuming obviously for your fire gear, but where do you put your other
every hall, everybody gets a locker. My hall is kind of a unique setup just because it used to be the old communications or dispatch for Scarborough. So Toronto amalgamated 6 boroughs or 6 smaller municipalities, well, way before I was on. And so the building was designed differently then. And so we actually have our own dorm that is I guess we call it the women's dorm. I guess in theory, we can't really say that anymore. Anybody could use it, I guess, but we have our own. I have, there's 4 women at my hall on C shift.
Awesome.
And sometimes 5, because if someone's on modified duty, they come to our hall sometimes. So we actually have 5 right now because we have a girl that's on modified. She's pregnant. So there's 5 of us. And when I first started, there was only room for 2 people in there. So we've had to make adjustments. But yes, we have lockers. We have our dorm. We have, our bathroom, our shower. And then the guys have their own big locker and stuff. But most halls, there's a locker section, and then your gear stays downstairs by the trucks, or there's a bunker gear room somewhere not far from the trucks.
You have a pole?
Yes.
You do? Oh
That's
my
a
God,
real
that's
thing.
wicked.
Absolutely. So the funny thing is, a lot of the halls are bungalows or they don't have poles, but my hall is actually 3 stories. So it's hold on when you go down that pole. Yeah, it's you can gain some speed for sure. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. I love it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a Dalmatian as well?
Yeah, there's some okay, so there's some Dalmatians, and there's some practical jokes that used to get played where they would get moved from hall to hall, and they would get put in places that are hard to access. So maybe they use company vehicles to get them on the roof, perhaps, or something. But there's definitely some fake Dalmatians and pole holes, definitely.
That's awesome. So
you actually have to get signed off in the academy to go down the pole hole.
Really?
Yeah. Everything's liability now, right? And the poles that we have at my hall, they come in different sizes. Ours is pretty thick. It's pretty girthy. There's some skinny ones. I don't know how people use those ones. I don't know how they hold on, and the other thing too is always use your legs, because skin on the pole just is no bueno. You're leaving some evidence behind. Yeah, squeeze with the legs. Yeah.
So I say this because you're kind of leading into it. On Instagram, and I follow a bunch of fire channels and stuff like that, and they're constantly playing pranks on each other. I mean, law enforcement does it too, but I feel like fire takes it to the next level. Okay, what's the story behind it? Is it just because it's just camaraderie and it's funny as shit, and it keeps you amused when you're working and you're waiting for calls? But what is it with the pranks, and what is the best prank that you've seen or that's been done to you?
Oh, yeah, I think it's just, it's like a team. There's always little pranks being pulled, or yeah, it's entertainment. There hasn't been a lot. Not to not to, sound, oh, it's 2022, but you certainly don't see it like you used to.
Yeah.
The hazing, or I guess you probably can't even say that word, but there hasn't been a lot of pranks. Like one thing that I had, when I was new, with my friend Matt, who was just on before me, they had us do some training, and we had to race hoisting a tool. So they are my colleagues or my friends. They went onto the roof. So I said my building, or my hall, is a 3-story building. So they went up to the roof and they lowered down the rope. And then, so Matt and I each had ropes, and then a tool. So we had to tie it off, and then they were going to hoist it. Right. And of course, like you mentioned at the beginning, I'm a very competitive person, and so is my friend. Right. So yeah, here we go. And, they go, so we're tying our clove hitch and our half hitch. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, we got totally drenched. So they just dropped buckets of water on us. Like, I'm so concentrated and committed to this, so intense. So like nothing too crazy, but it's part of the fun. We've also, with recruits, hopefully nobody's listening to this that could get me in trouble. We do a training evolution where we set up the aerial, and then, we have the rookies. This didn't happen to me, but, the rookies will go up and whatever, and then we can control it, right? They're up there and they're locked in safety wise and everything, but we can control it. So of course we get them up there and we keep them up there, and then we bring them down, and then we can hit them with the hose, and so just fun like that. Nothing too crazy. But
I think it's true, like you said, though. You need those, like, because otherwise you don't feel part of the team, right? Like, if those things aren't happening to you, like, and if you get offended by those things happening, like, first responder is not the career for you. I will say that straight up. If that offends you, if you think that people shouldn't be doing that, I'll be brutally honest. I know that Kathryn, you might not be able to, but I will say it. Go fucking somewhere else, because you need that level of fun and blow off some steam and have some fun and camaraderie with the people you work with, because you don't survive it if you don't have that, right? If you don't have that ability to joke around, and like we were talking about before the show, black humor and stuff like that. And I feel like there's definitely like a tipping point where the black humor becomes, if that's your only way of coping, and if you start to actually feel that way, like around that black humor, and then you probably shouldn't get too far, and you probably should talk to somebody.
It's something that you hate to see kind of disappear, because of, it's a tough area to talk about. But I agree with you, right? Like, you come from a sports team, and you hope that obviously nobody is hurt or upset, or you never cross the line that way. Like, that's what keeps it fun and light, right? For the dark times, for the hard times, and the tough calls, right? Like, it's unfortunately, you'll always have your one-offs for sure, but I think people that get it are the people that work. It's hard. You can't explain that to the general public, like it's not, you really have to kind of understand it and be in it, like you said, as first responders. And you don't ever want to hurt somebody's feelings or offend them, but it has to be kind of expected, right? To a degree. Maybe less than what it used to be, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely toned down. It probably did need to in some places, and in some instances probably did need to tone down. I agree. So then let's talk about the other part of firefighting, which is what I also know about, which is the food. Apparently, when you work in fire, you also have to be an insanely good cook or cook for multiple people. And I always see them at the grocery store, and they're always picking up what looks like to be delicious. And I'm like, can I come for dinner? Because I would like somebody to cook for me, and like, I don't want to cook for my family, so I want to come and sit at the fire hall and eat there. Is it still true? Because I know in Edmonton, the rookies have to cook. So is it like that in Toronto? How does that work?
It's kind of a mixed bag, because as a rookie, like, I certainly didn't have a very good cooking background, but I always offered to help. But if you also ended up at a hall where you have somebody that, like, literally we have chefs and they love to do it, okay, great. Like, they would take the reins on that, and you just kind of like sous chef or help. And then sometimes you end up at halls that have a group of people that have no interest in really, or they don't have a natural. So then you kind of, fumble through it and figure out whatever. And sometimes it's just takeout. But generally at the fire hall, you don't miss a meal. You get it at some point or another, I guess. But we certainly eat well, and over, definitely. There's no denying that.
Is it a teamwork thing, or is it just like, because like
You
at the
know,
jail we have the same lunchtime, but we would like, I mean, we don't do like cooking. I mean, we don't have kitchen facilities either, but we would do potlucks like once in a while, but we wouldn't like everybody was just responsible for their own like lunch. Like, is
yeah.
that not a thing?
Yeah. So again, like every hall is a little different. My hall, we do lunch and dinner, or sometimes it's like brunch and dinner. Other halls, sometimes they'll just do one meal. I have to say that it's probably the most camaraderie focused. Like it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you don't have it, you notice it. Like it's there's nothing better to me than when you're able to all sit down. Like we could be 13, 14, 15 sometimes, all sitting and having dinner together, talking, laughing, joking, telling stories. It's like family dinner, right? Like it's like, if you had family dinner once a week, it just brings everybody together. And, during the day that you might be sporadically doing your own thing or whatever, but it's just nice to sit and eat with everybody. And then on top of that, because I'm at a Chiefs hall, it's not for everybody. Some people love it, some people don't. I've had very good experiences with Chiefs at my hall, and just their involvement in the kitchen and just eating with us. And I've always had chiefs that say there's no rank in the kitchen, right? Like they're just awesome people, and you get to know them in a different way than when you're not there or not in the hall having dinner with them. And so yeah, I love that part. We're very fortunate to be able to do that. What are we doing for dinner tonight? What are we making? Right? Like let's make a list and go get it. And then and whatever, if we get interrupted, that's fine. Sometimes dinner doesn't happen until 10 o'clock at night or whatever, but it's a huge part of the job. Yeah, like I feel very fortunate that we get to experience that. And I can't imagine not having it. Like I can't imagine having a job where you don't have that, but obviously like this is a very unique thing. So I would highly recommend encouraging it if you have a job that allow you to do a potluck on once a week or something, right? Or people are in the position to be able to do that, whether it's like an office job on a Friday afternoon, everybody can have lunch together. I don't know, but yeah, it's awesome. I love it. That brings everybody together. Nothing like having prime rib when everybody's working on Thanksgiving Sunday or Monday, right? You can't be with your own families. This is your family. And so you make the most of it. And yeah, it's awesome. Like when you've got a chief cutting your prime rib or making your prime rib, you're like, it's just amazing. Yeah.
It's totally true, because that is a big part of first responder careers, is like you are going to spend more time with these people than you are with your family. Like you are going to spend more time with the people you work with, and on very important days than you will with your family. You will have more Christmases with work. You'll have more Thanksgivings, more Easters, more birthdays, more anniversaries, family than you will with your actual family. And yeah, I agree. It does make it a little bit more bearable when you are, for me, especially because I had, young girls when I was in corrections, and to be away on Christmas morning, know that you weren't there to watch them with your present, but to be having Christmas brunch with, the 10 guys that I work with, and same thing, somebody's cooking bacon, somebody's cooking salad, we're blowing the breaker in the lunchroom and like, oh, I gotta reset it, let's go do this. And, like it is, we need that. We need that again as another kind of a coping, or to make it good, to make it, like this is worth being away from your family, is that you get to hang out with these people.
Butter chicken's being made tonight.
I was gonna ask what's for
butter chicken and asparagus and rice.
You're eating better than me. God damn it. I'm so jealous.
Well, if you're ever in Ontario, you come by. Yeah, they won't know who Kathryn is. They won't know who that is. That's not my work. Everybody calls me Kat at work, because when I started, I worked with a guy named Matt. So we were Kat and Matt, or Matt and Kat. So that's what, if you say Kathryn, they'll go, who's that?
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to finish up with just a couple questions for you. Can you continue to kind of learn in order to stay on top of things within the firefighting world? Like what do you guys do to stay current with knowledge?
Yeah. Well, really, you should take it upon yourself to read up on your training notes, your SOGs, your SOPs. Like we do training, of course, that's scheduled, right? Like you could show up to work in the morning, they say, okay, your truck's going to go down and do forcible entry or RIT or whatever it may be. So there's that. But then it's also very much, it's expected that you do it, or you do it with your crew in the hall. Maybe I would say at my hall, we've had a lot of rookies come in over the past few years. So always having kind of young people, fresh blood that have to do training, and they've got book sign-offs. It forces you to do that with them, or, not forces you, but it's good to do that with them. Just practicing stuff. And then sometimes you run a call and it's the call that you don't do very often, or something comes up in it and you go, oh, maybe I should review that when we go back to the hall, whatever that may be, just brush up on something. Or or even, you get a medical call for an allergy, it's a good idea to brush up on your allergy protocols and stuff like that, right? Because you don't run those calls super often, or the ones that I always say, like the fire department is a Swiss Army knife. So there's so many, jack of all trades, right? Like there's so many things to know, but there's not a lot that you do over and over and over, like false alarms and stuff like that, for sure. But yeah, so I guess if that answers your question, hopefully.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's awesome. Because like I said, like in lots of careers, you have like a professional development day where you go and you take a course, or it's a requirement to research.
Like our medical, we have to research every year.
Yeah.
That's mandatory. The job schedules that for us. So that's kind of out of our hands that way. But you definitely have to self-advocate for training. I don't want to knock on the job, but it's been a challenge within our department to get training, to get adequate training. It's something they're working on. I certainly don't want to they're working on improving it and everything, so that's great. But it's been challenging, like to say I'm on a rescue that does vehicle extrication, and I know that it's been very difficult for my captains at times to get us a car that we can go practice on. It's I don't know if that's just one of the drawbacks to being on a big department. It's really challenging.
What's the biggest challenge you have with your specific role right now, and how are you trying to overcome?
Yeah, that's probably one of the challenges. A lot of it's out of my hands that way, but what's a challenge? It's a kind of a strange time in the world right now. Just coming out of COVID, and some of the calls that we're running, we're doing they've got us going to, I don't know if I should say this, they have us assigned to criminal activity calls right now. And my understanding is it's in support of police and EMS, and just there's a shortage and stuff. And I don't know the true answers. Like, you get told what comes down, but it's challenging. What I mean by that is there's a lot of people that are dealing with mental illness. It's such a broad, like it's really eye-opening on how many people struggle with it and how broad of a spectrum it is. It's not, when we say mental health, it's not just somebody that's bipolar or schizophrenic, right? It's anything. It's so complicated and challenging, and it just seems like more and more calls are related to this. We call PICs, person in crisis. I'm not sure what you term it or call it, but yeah, it just seems to be like there are more and more of these calls, and sometimes questionable on why we're attending. Like I mentioned, these criminal activity calls. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's challenging because it's hard to understand.
Yeah, I think you are, because it is. It's that, because sometimes even as law enforcement, we don't know why we were. What do you want? They're not hurting anybody. They're not hurting themselves. They're not hurting, like they're not damaging property. They're just out here, but they're not acting normal. And I said, right, and well, you need to go deal with this person. What do you want us to do? Like, this person is just out here just because you don't like they look weird or acting weird, or are potentially high as a kite, like, are they actively doing drugs? No, then I can't arrest them. Are they actively stealing for drugs? No, then we can't arrest them. Like, like, what do you want me to do? They're not harming you, they're not harming themselves, they're not harming property. So,
and arresting them isn't really the solution too, right?
Yeah, it's not. It's just moving the problem, which, I mean, and like you say, the general public don't want to get on the street outside of their apartment, right? So they're like, come get him and take him somewhere else. Oh, well, do you like me to move him to a different neighborhood? Because that's all we can do, right? So yeah, I do feel, and we have actually seen that increase in Edmonton as well. Fire being called out to a lot more of these, like you said, person in crises, and paramedics as well being called out and just being put on standby, which is putting a huge strain on the healthcare system, because now these paramedics are on standby, not able, like essentially they're out of order. They're working, but they're not ready to take a call, emergency, right? But are they really needed to be there? No. I know from the law enforcement standpoint, we appreciate the support. We absolutely appreciate the support. So having fire there, having paramedics there, just as another set of eyes, or even just as another person to be like, hey, have we tried this? Like, hey, I have this tool in my skill set. Like, maybe we can try this, or maybe we can do this so we can help this person, or we can deal with this situation that we need to. So As much as I know that's challenging for you, I know that as police and law enforcement, we appreciate your guys' presence there for sure.
Police and EMS, I mean, they are understaffed and overworked immense. Like it's crazy. We had a call recently. I know I wasn't in the building for this, so I can't speak from like my personal witnessing it, but it came in as a fire call. And so it was a full fire response for an apartment building. And the first two crews went up to investigate. They knock on the apartment door and the guy opens it and he's got like a machete in his hand behind him here. And he's got like two knives in his hand, right? In theory, like that could happen at any point in time. It could have happened 20 years ago. Who knew? But it just seems like these edge a little bit, or you're uneasy about at any point in time now, what kind of call you're like, it came in as a fire, right? So then all of a sudden you're like running down the hallway because this guy's got three knives. And he's obviously he's a PIC or he's got something going on. And so, yeah. And then it's like, get police here ASAP. I think they tased him 3 times and then had to be used what are the guns with the rubber bullets? The ones that, yeah. So it escalated like that. So yeah, like it's just, and it seems like these sort of calls are happening more often that where they're not what they seem, or all of a sudden something goes sideways, unexpectedly, or not having anything to do with what anybody's done. There was another call where a friend of mine, he was at a call, like just a lift assist, and it turned into a few houses over, unrelated. A few houses over, the wife had been stabbed by the husband or spouse or whoever, and she went out to the fire truck, to the driver that was in the truck. And so all of a sudden it went from a lift assist to it was a hostage situation because the husband was inside with the 4-year-old kid. And next thing you know, not that has anything to do with the fire department directly, but it's just the times that we're in right now are very challenging and complicated. So yeah. And I don't envy the police and EMS that are dealing with a lot of this.
No, I totally agree with you. Okay, so let's jump into some rapid fire ones. So these are basically yes or no answers or one-word answers. So what is the coolest location you have ever worked at or been to on a call?
Oh boy. I'm going to be bad at rapid fire. I can't even think of a cool location. You know what? The cool locations are probably downtown, and I don't work downtown. Like they've got the Island or the CN Tower or, the Rogers Center. I work in the East End where we don't really have these kinds of cool. I think my roommate's been on the CN Tower. How's that?
That's cool. That's super cool. That would be challenging.
Hopefully I didn't just make that up. I think that's true.
It's okay. Your roommate's not on the podcast. And if they are, they'll just comment on it and be like, okay, what is the most uncomfortable thing that has happened to you as a female on shift?
Oh, it takes a lot to make me uncomfortable. I mean, there's like so many ways you could take this. Inappropriate, discomfort. It
could be physical discomfort. Like I interviewed Terry Goslin last week. She's with the military, and she was like, just being cold and wet and knowing that I'm going to be cold and wet for the next foreseeable hours is the worst thing. I was like, yeah, totally. Yeah. I can see that too.
Yeah. Discomfort. Like it's hard to, when you get made RIT at a call where you stand around for 2.5 hours, that's not very enjoyable when you get to see everybody else do all the work and, have all the fun. It's not very comfortable, but I can't think of anything that's kind of like more exciting than that.
Okay, what would you give a piece of advice for someone who's entering the career?
Entering, like, are they trying to get do they need their schooling still, or they've got it all and they want to apply now?
Your choice. What either or both?
Advice. It's rare that people get hired on at a really young age. It's not possible. It certainly does happen. But if you know at a young age that this is what you want to do, then start doing things that help your resume. I don't want to say just like pad your resume, but do something that will help. So whether it's like go straight into school for fire, if you live rurally, or if you live, out of the city, get on a volunteer department if you can. Anything that's like hands-on is really useful, like trades, paramedic, anything like that is always good. It's great to have a medical background for the job, obviously. Anything team related, right? Volunteer. I mean, it's so the competition is so hard nowadays. It's very hard to kind of like separate yourself from the competition.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that blood doesn't bother you or being claustrophobic or Go scuba diving or something. But yeah, and don't, I guess one of the biggest things I'd say is don't get deterred from if you don't get on right away. Like if it's something you truly want, it's worth it. It's worth the investment into your career and push through. I don't want to say failure. Like if you don't get hired by one department, don't think that that's going to be the same for the next department that you apply for. Just keep trying. Don't give up.
Fantastic. Okay, and because you're calling to be called for dinner, last question I have for you is, what is your favorite snack while you are on shift?
Oh, anything dessert related. Oh my gosh. You name it, like cake, pie, ice cream, donuts, tarts. I have the biggest sweet tooth. I swear it's I don't know if I got Ainsley's too, but deadly. If you can retire from this job the same weight that you got hired, you're winning. That is a win.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I don't think we can top it. That's how to end this episode because that's phenomenal. I love it.
I gotta say one thing though. My friend told me this recently, and I just wanted to share it. And I thought it was so true, good or bad. There's two things firefighters don't like, and that's change and the way things are. So I thought that was pretty spot on and pretty fun. So it's pretty true, I think.
Drop in knowledge like it's going out of style. Yeah. It's fantastic. Today I have learned a ton. Our listeners have learned a ton. It has been so fun. I loved your stories. You're hilarious. I can't wait for you to come back and visit. Whenever you're coming back, please come see us. Let's go skiing again.
For sure. Hopefully in the new year.
Okay, well, you go enjoy your butter chicken, asparagus, and rice. I will be just over here thinking about the deliciousness. Have an amazing rest of your day. Have a safe rest of your shift. And we'll touch base again soon, okay?
Thanks very much for having me, and take care.
Well, that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for listening, tuning in, and sharing your time and energy with us. Make sure you check out our next episode starring another badass female first responder on Apple, Spotify, or TuneIn. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Blue Line Fitness Testing. Stay safe and keep your head on a swivel.